Aston Villa are absolutely on fire right now. Let's talk about this top three, and we'll start, Tim, with Aston Villa, having just seen them there. But I want to ask you, what could stop each of them from winning the title? So if you look at Villa, what would be their biggest weakness or challenge?
Sure. So you know that I don't have a ton of confidence in the centre-back pairings. I like Konsa, don't love him. And then when you put him with Pau Torres or yesterday, Victor Lindelof, I think there's a weakness there. Again, so much to like about them. The other part of it for me is they haven't, if you ask me, like, can they win a title? They haven't done it. They aren't expected to do it. And so there's a mentality piece to that. Now, did Leicester go on and do that in 2016? Yes. You can win a title without being built to win a title. But that is so difficult. The other teams in this title race are built to win titles. That's why I think they're a little bit short. And
it's why it doesn't happen very often. Like you mentioned, Leicester City, which was an absolute anomaly. For you, Villa's weaknesses are what to winning the title?
I just think it's harder for them to win games. The last 9 in all competitions, they've won by a single goal. Did it yesterday against Chelsea, and top marks for the way that they're going about this. You look at the league table, which we saw earlier on, the goal difference is a lot fewer than the top 2 above them, which is kind of another indicator. Of course, points is the main indicator, but the more games go on, the goal difference, is I think is kind of important.
Yeah, they're at +10. City are at 26.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
22.
I mean, it's just tighter. The games look tighter. They're doing brilliantly, amazing kind of jump this season, particularly from where they started from. But to keep winning those games so tightly, and maybe teams will figure out how strong they are in the second half of games, that I just don't see it continuing to win the title.
Let's move on and talk about Manchester City, because we will get to Arsenal in a second, who are also making quite a lot of hard work out of games week in, week out. But Manchester City seem the ones to find at the moment everything rather easy. What would their biggest challenge be?
Well, I still feel with Man City that they're very vulnerable in transition. Nottingham Forest scored a goal yesterday in transition, a counter-attack right from their own goal. They score a goal against Man City. Don't win the game, of course. So I still think that's a problem. Though Rodri will mitigate that when he's back, which is very shortly. But I still think, and they've had a run of games, City, where it's some of the weaker teams in the league. The stronger teams get chances against them, and I just think that's going to be enough to drop enough points. And the other point I'd say about them is, and we talked about it yesterday, this kind of new team for him. You got Tijani Reinders and Ryan Shirky that are new and are finding their feet. Can they be consistent? They combined yesterday for goals and they look really good. Ryan Shirky, is he going to be the man late down the stretch that's going to continue to create and assist? At the moment, brilliant. But let's wait and see when the tougher games come. I think that's what's going to hold him up.
What do you think?
Well, it's that. And so the conceding of goals. So what we know about Manchester City is there's Rodri's the big one. Can he, one, be fit, and 2, can he play all the game? It used to just be Rodri's there, and that's it. Do they have to rest him and chop and change him? If he's in there, way better than Nico Gonzalez for me. The other part is the inverted fullback. So Pep Guardiola basically invented this, right? It was to get the fullback inside, to sort of get a hold of the game and just press the game. They were never exposed. And if they were exposed every now and again, they're not doing the inverted fullback as well or as fluidly, and they're getting exposed. And so I just think there's a little bit of a weakness there. And by the way, it's football. Teams work it out. When he first started doing the inverted fullback, people were like, this is crazy. Where are these numbers coming from? People have worked it out. I mean, yesterday was a perfect example. Igor Jesus, he occupied 2 center backs. We don't often see that. He sort of dominated Ruben Diaz, which we often haven't seen. So there's a little bit of weakness there.
I also, just to add on Man City's possible problems, when their football's crisp and accurate and they don't give the ball away and there's fewer transitions, great, because they're not built to defend, and Pep would admit that. So when their football's great, which it is right now against some of these sides, then they dominate. They got the guy up front to score the goals. Foden's having a brilliant season as well. But when that football's not quite as accurate and they turn it over, problems at the back.
Arsenal, Tim, what could their biggest problem be?
Well, it's sort of picking the bones out of it, really, because I do think Arsenal. There aren't many weaknesses. I think the one criticism, you and I talked about it yesterday, they're not putting teams away. They're not going from 1-0 to 2-0 to 3-0 and then seeing the game out. It's been a little bit nervy, but I think in every area they're so incredibly strong. So that would be the one thing for me, trying to make games easier. You talk about Villa not making games easy, but Arsenal just don't seem to have that that instinct at the end, just to
rush a killer instinct to put teams away.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with that, and that's, I think, the main point with them. Top goal scorer, Victor Gyökeres, 5 Premier League goals, 2 are penalties. Now, Arsenal have done a great job of spreading the goals around. And if that continues and Saka gets more numbers and maybe starts being a bit more consistent with the goal-scoring part of it, Odegaard and others, then absolutely. But that will be, spreading the goals, keep getting the goals from set pieces, because maybe teams figure it out a little bit better than they have done. So if there's fewer set piece goals and there's not a big scorer of 15, which is probably not going to be, then going back to the putting teams away, they might drop points. They're not going to lose many games, but they might draw enough not to win the title if City keep it up.
Robbie, what do you think about their mentality? Could it be that they've had so much heartbreak in the past few years that spurs them on, or could that be a scar, a wound that returns?
Well, it's a great question, and it's a really important part of it. I think Lee Dixon would say we're not going to know until March or April, but it is a factor. It's got to be a factor because of the times they've lost it from second place. We all think they're going to do it this year. The squad is better to do it. They look like they're ready to do it. There's the huge desire to do it. But right down the stretch, I don't know whether that is going to come into play.
I do think this team is mature enough, arrogant enough.
They've learned enough, maybe.
They're hungry enough. Yeah, I do think the lessons have been learned. I do.
Yeah, they're battle weary. They've got the scars from previous heartbreaks. Okay, we shall see. It's certainly a brilliant.
Kick-off, Alex. Hi, Michael.
Hello.
What did you make that another 3-point finish?
Very happy with the performance. Individually and collectively, so dominant. We were a big threat. So very pleased with all of that, but the margin should have been much bigger. I mean, with the amount of situations, chances, open chances that we generated through the game, it should never be 2-1. But that's the Premier League, that's the step that we have to make. I think the first shot that they had, they scored the goal, and then David has to make another save to maintain the result. So, but what I like is that we're having a lot of issues. We're dealing with it in an incredible way. Yesterday we lost Jurriën, today we lose Calafiori in the warm-up. Declan has to play as a fullback, and you see the performance that he put in. So that's the spirit, and that's how much our players want it.
How long can you sustain that with the amount of injuries you have? You seem like you're having to dig deep every week.
I don't know. At the moment we survived 6 months. So let's see, it's another 5.5 to go, so hopefully things will get better. The good news as well, for example, we got Gabi earlier than expected, which is great. The medical staff, I think they've done an incredible job, the way he pushes himself as well, and that's what we need, because we lost one, we got somebody else back, and overall I think the performance was against a really good side, very, very good.
Simon?
Mikel, are the injury issues uniting the group?
Yes. Because as well there are injuries with Jurriën, he landed awkwardly, and there's something with Ricky was something as well very, very strange, and but you speak to Declan and tell him he needs to play there as a right winger, and he said, okay, I'm up for the challenge, I'm going to do my best, and the attitude is great to witness.
This is the second week in a row where City have obviously gone top and you've had to respond within hours. How much confidence does that give you in the title race that you've done that twice in a row and you can last this?
But we can only control what we do, and we are doing a lot of good things. There are things that we have to improve as well, to have the margins better. We need more players back as well, to have better option and maintain the team very, very fresh. And every 3 days is going to be a challenge, and we are up for it.
Okay, James, yes.
Hi, Mikel. You alluded to it in that first question, but if you keep performing this way, keep creating the shots and chances you do you feel like a very big statement win will come quite soon?
It has to be, because we have a lot of quality, but what I like is the way we play, the way we produce, how willing the players are to take that initiative, that aggression to make things happen, because this is a very, very difficult team to play against, and I think we've done really well for the majority of the game.
Tom from London.
Mikel, could you talk a little bit about the process when you lose a player in the warm-up and the process to then picking a new player and how that goes, and does panic set in, or you're very confident that plan B, C, D is going to be correct?
No, well, it's something that we have prepared, because we know that it can happen. So when I give the lineup, I always tell the boys, and the day before is be ready, because this is football, this is the Premier League, and anything can happen. Somebody now can get a bug, and an hour later he cannot play, and you have to be in the right mental frame to be able to perform immediately and don't go through that disappointment, and that's what the players are doing.
And what was the issue with Rishi, just quickly?
It's something that he felt yesterday, something very awkward that happened, and today in the warm-up he wasn't comfortable.
James, yes, please.
You talked about margin should have been bigger. I think you said the same thing against Palace. Obviously, 1 goal wins against Everton, Wolves. When was the last time you felt comfortable in a game?
comfortable in this league. Well, that's a big word, but yeah, when the scoreline is bigger, but hopefully I don't have to use it that often.
But do you sort of feel that kind of nervous energy in the game? I mean, when was the last time as a manager you
with the crowd, you mean? Yeah, well, but because when you just concede in the last minutes, the game before against Palace as well, when we didn't really concede nothing, and then they scored in the first shot that they had. Obviously, it's this, but we have to be able to go through that as well with normality, with showing composure and understanding that, okay, you don't do that well, you are not efficient in the opponent's box, then you have to be incredibly good in your own, and that's a good way as well to going through that.
Okay, we'll do one more live with Sam from Daily.
I'm Carl.
Hi.
2-1, it seems to get really nervy from the crowd to players. Is that a consequence of the crowd being nervy and that translates?
That's a willingness to win. That we all want to win so badly. That is, now I don't want to lose what I have, and we have to play to continue to score and show that composure and that ability. And we should have scored the third one. I mean, we have two massive chances to put it 2-3-1, and then it would have been different. We haven't, so we have to suffer a little bit more.
Is that sustainable though, to be that emotional all the time in games?
Yes, from my side, yes.
Okay, guys.
Knock-on effect?
Sorry?
Can't you have a knock-on effect though if you're emotional for every single game regardless of the...
If you win, I think you win, you learn, and you go again. The knock-on effect of winning is incredibly powerful.
Okay, guys, we'll do a few for Villa. This is 12 o'clock, the 29th.
Okay, let's get to it then. The title race dominates a lot of the back pages in the Sunday papers. The Sun on Sunday, thirsty work is the headline after Arsenal's victory over Brighton at the Emirates. John, it is a win, albeit a cagey one. Are they convincing you more or not so much that they're going to end that 22-year wait?
Cagey or nervy, Dharmesh? I would say nervy, probably. I do like that back page because it sort of kind of focuses on Martin Odegaard there, who opened up the scoring, didn't he, with that wonderful goal. And I do think Odegaard, I think, is a terrific captain, really respected by his peers and teammates, and the sort of leader for Arteta on the pitch. So I think it was good that he gets his back his form. But Arsenal missing a few players. 2-0, they're cruising, and you think, oh, this is a good response to earlier in the day. Man City, obviously, a really impressive, hard-fought, ground-out win at sort of Nottingham Forest. And Arsenal have to respond. And you think, wow, OK, they're in the zone here, they're going to do it, and they're going to do it comfortably. And at 2-0, they were putting on the pressure for 3-0, and then suddenly they concede, and then all of a sudden you're feeling the nerves and the tension amongst Arsenal fans. I'm sure you could feel it within the ground. That's what it feels like at the moment. And they've gone from a place, I think, in sort of October, November, when they were winning games for fun and playing ever so well and free-flowing football and relaxing, to a place when they really needed one of the best saves you'll see this season, if not the best, from David Raya to tip it over, to maintain that 2-1 scoreline at the end. Because, wow, I mean, the Sunday Express even lead on the save, a ray of hope. And it really was that good. I mean, it was a remarkable save. But it does talk to some nerves in the Arsenal camp, and they are leaders, and they've got a massive game on Tuesday against Aston Villa, and it just feels as if, they're feeling the pressure, I think, much more than Man City, who've been there, done it, got the T-shirt. Aston Villa, who seem to be just enjoying the ride, if you like. And Arsenal, the fan expectation, the expectations in the ground, huge summer spending spree, who's, really sort of kind of taking the limelight out of those new signings. There's so much pressure and expectation on Arteta this year to win a trophy. I think he's done a great job at Arsenal overall, but he is expected to win a major trophy this year. All those things coming together, I think, is playing into that feeling of nerves.
Jason, John mentioned it there, the anxiety, the nervousness, the caginess almost. The Sunday Telegraph, they focus on that.
The crowd.
Well, exactly. Emirates are washed with anxiety, but Arsenal maintain top spot. Sam Dean, who was at the Emirates Stadium, says, in recent weeks, the Emirates Stadium has become one of the most anxious arenas in European football. Arsenal are top of the Premier League and the Champions League, into the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup, but it feels like every home match is a source of maximum stress for the club supporters and the players. Mikel Arteta says it's because of a willingness to win, but is there a fine line between willingness and desperation?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think the desperation is winning at the moment. I think it doesn't take an awful lot for that atmosphere to emerge at the Emirates. I think it even goes back to the dog days of Arsene Wenger. You know, that there was that kind of frustration that took over at times. Obviously, Arteta's moved that on quite a lot. There's much more unity around the ground. But I think that unity has become almost, as you say, that desperation to finally get over the line. This is a team that I think, once they do win the league, can probably go on and and be a very dominant team for quite some time, notwithstanding what obviously Manchester City and Liverpool and others can do. I think the talent is there, the strength is there. I agree with John. I do like Mikel Arteta, although I do think at times he does need to calm down. You know, on the touchline, I just think he transmits an awful lot of anxiety to the players, and you can see it at the Emirates. You know, he is very, very engaged with what's going on the pitch, but sometimes it's a bit too much. And I think those moments come sometimes too early in games. You know, it's almost like very early on they're almost so stressful and trying to score a goal very quickly and trying to get, and then after that it's almost like, right, we scored, now we can't concede, we can't lose. And I think they've got, and obviously it's part of being a maturing team and winning something, and as John says, I completely agree, he has to win a major trophy this year. And I say once they get over the line, if they get over the line, it will make a huge difference to them. It will be transformative to Arsenal once they win a major trophy again. I think it will be transformative, but it's that anxiety and that desperation, as you talk about, that can they do it? And I have to admit, I do slightly fear for them. I fear that it's been so good in some ways up until this point, top of the Champions League table as well, but still haven't won anything yet. So it's a long way to go, and I would worry a lot if I was them at Manchester City, because they're looking really strong.
You know, maybe Arsenal are having their bad patch right now and they're still winning, because let's be honest, the Wolves game was really bad, but they won it. Last week at Everton, I was at Everton and they weren't convincing, but they won. Yesterday they weren't great, but they won. So we all remember, what was it, 4 or 5 weeks ago, that I think they beat Tottenham to 6 points clear, and everyone's saying, Arsenal running away with it. This is the bad patch, and they're still top of the league. So perhaps this is a positive, the weather in the storm. And I know they've got a tough January coming up. They've got Villa on Tuesday, like you say. If they win that game, then all of a sudden that's a big
It's
moment.
one of two things, isn't it? It's either that, and I agree with Mark, it could well be that, because every team has a wobble, don't they, during the season. You can't just seamlessly go on and win every single game. But at the start of the season, we're talking about Liverpool in a similar way, weren't we? When they were winning all those games, we're thinking, oh, they're just getting over the line, and then it suddenly fell away. So it could go that way as well.
It's a different narrative with Liverpool. It was almost like they've won the title, so they're winning 5 on the bounce, and even though they weren't playing well, it's because Liverpool, that's what they do. With Arsenal, it's like, oh, this is what Arsenal do, they're wobbling. But beat Villa, right, that's a tough call, because Villa are on a great run at the moment. But I mean, I do think that Arsenal have got a tough January, especially at home. They've got Villa this week, then they've got Liverpool, then they've got Man United. So the next 3 home games are really big. But come through January, if you're still unbeaten at home, then all of a sudden, maybe this was the wobble, and maybe they're kind of showing the kind of the bottle right now. So I still think Arsenal are the best squad in the league. Yeah. And I think we've kind of put a little bit too much emphasis on Man City because it's Pep. If they lose Erling Haaland, then Man City are a different team completely. So I just think if you're an Arsenal fan, just calm down, stay calm, and it might just turn itself out in a positive way.
John, in your paper, Neil McClellan, who's at the Emirates, says the good news for Arsenal fans is that the Gunners held off a late Brighton fight back to return to the top of the table. The bad news is that there's potentially another 5 months of this nerve-jangling anxiety to go this season. Now, Jason mentioned about Mikel Arteta and his demeanour, and maybe that's adding to the anxiety. I don't know what you think, but whenever I've been at his news conferences, you're there every week like I am, I've noticed something different with Mikel Arteta this time, and he seems to be a little bit more relaxed. Maybe at odds to what Jason is saying.
Before John says that, sorry, I agree with him. Press conferences, I'm talking about on the touchline. That's what I'm talking about. Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to agree with you. I think his general demeanour has changed. Yeah. And I also think he has improved. We're starting from a low base here, in terms of behavioural standards, terms. But I do actually think then that he has, there's no doubt about it, when you are too anxious, when you are too het up, when you are screaming and, being too overzealous on that touchline, it resonates to players. It really does.
But Jurgen Klopp did it at Liverpool.
They embraced it, didn't they?
Exactly.
And Jurgen Klopp was a brilliant manager for Liverpool. But I think with Mikel Arteta,
it works for Arsenal?
I think it makes them nervous. But I must say, I think the point I was going to make, stop boys, basically is that I actually think he's dramatically improved that. Whether you like that or not, I still think he's over anxious on the touchline. But from where he's come from, I think it's one of his big improvements as a manager.
No, I agree with that.
This season, look, and I tell you where that's borne out, is borne out in their disciplinary record, which is Yellow cards is a sort of kind of a little bit mid-table, but they haven't had a sending off. Well, last season, injuries and sendings off, you could argue, completely undermined their title challenge. Well, they haven't had one this season. I think that's testament to Arteta's improvement, and I do actually think that's perhaps a little bit underestimated and undervalued. I still think he could calm down a bit, but if he calms down, do you lose Arteta's passion, enthusiasm and the drive and the coach that he is? Honestly, over the course of the piece, basically, over the 6 years, he's done a remarkable job. But I do think ultimately he will, and he knows this, he'll be judged on what he wins and judged on what he, achieves as a manager, and that's got to be trophies. But I do think Mark's right. They're basically top of the Premier League, top of the Champions League. But the nerves. If last season it was injuries, we've got a bit of injuries this season. If this season they don't win it, I think it'll be down to nerves and tension.
Mark, just picking up on what you said, maybe this is Arsenal's sticky patch. Riyadh Al-Samurai in the Mail on Sunday says, if Arsenal are to finally hold their nerve in the title race, then Mikel Arteta ought to spend the entirety of next summer writing notes of thanks to those who helped them through these festive weeks. Own goals are the gifts that keep on giving. If you look at their last 4 games in all competitions, the 2-1 victory against Wolves, 2 own goals. It was a penalty that separated them from Everton. There was an own goal, albeit in the Carabao Cup, against Crystal Palace. And the decisive goal, what ended up being the decisive goal against Brighton, was an own goal as well. What should we read into that, if anything?
Well, I think what we read into that is the fact that they're still getting results. Every team has most teams in normal title-winning seasons have a wobble. They have a difficult period. And I think this is Arsenal's now. And I think, had it gone the other way, had they lost those games or drawn those games, then we could say that the nerves have been affray. But I just think it's easy with Arsenal because I think we've all been to the Emirates, and it can be an edgy stadium. The fans, they're very quick to not turn, but they're very quick to get anxious. So it's an easy narrative to play into it that Arsenal fans are nervous. It's going to cost them the title. I don't know. I just think that it shows a character that they've got that they can get over the line of these games. And you talk about Arteta's, I won't say antics on the touchline, but I think what it is with Arteta, I think he knows that he still hasn't got a player on the pitch who can do that for him. So, you go back to the classic captains, the Roy Keanes at Man United, even, Van Dijk at Liverpool. The manager can stand back and know that he's got a guy on the pitch who can do all that kind of ranting and raving and organising on the pitch. I still think Arsenal are quite naive sometimes on the pitch, quite young. I mean, they're not the youngest team, but they have a bit of inexperience. They haven't got like a Kevin De Bruyne that Man City had that could just guide them through games. I think that's Declan Rice's potential role. Maybe Martin Odegaard as captain, but they're still not quite there yet. So I think Arteta has to kind of almost micromanage from the touchline because he needs someone on the pitch to do it for him. So I think everyone at Arsenal needs to calm down a bit.
John,
it's still going well.
John, we're talking about these own goals, and I guess it's shining a light on Arsenal's attacking players, and in particular, the man we've spoken about throughout this season in Victor Gyökeres. Not just his performance yesterday, but just generally, when everybody is fit, because Kai Havertz is coming back, Gabriel Jesus has just returned, Mikel Merino's played a role up front as well. When everybody is fit, is he the guy for you that's going to spearhead Arsenal's title challenge for the rest of the season?
No, I don't think he can do it. I honestly, I worry about him a bit, and I think that he, in fairness to him, £64 million, and basically, there's a lot of Arsenal fans saying, well, he does a great job for the team and he works hard. My word, you expect a bit more from that. If you really go all in, as Arsenal did for a striker, you expect goals too, and he's just not scoring enough. He's not contributing enough to the game. Look at his few number of touches that, again, he was barely involved yesterday, and he's really struggling, I think. In fairness to him, before he got injured at Burnley, and at that point I thought, here we go, he's scoring, and he scored at Burnley, and he was leading the charge, he was leading the press, and we think, okay, this is what it's going to be about. He was a kind of a real sort of kind of bull in the china shop, really working hard and sort of leading the press, and basically also scoring and then contributing to the team. And since he's come back from Burnley, bearing in mind he didn't have a pre-season, in fairness to him, there's a few sort of kind of strikers obviously struggling from that aspect this season. But I worry about him, and I think Arteta's kind of caught in this place where he's putting him in because he could see that he was realising his potential and is sticking with him to kind of get him that opportunity to get back to where he was and where he was threatening to be. But I actually think at the same time it's a mistake because Gabby Jesus comes on, looks much better. He looks sharp, he looks quick, he looks, very skillful, his touch. And I think Kai Havertz will still be, when fit again, will be Arteta's first choice number 9. I don't think it's worked for Gyökeres yet. And I think of all the big signings and the statement signings in the summer, that's the one under the microscope. It's always going to be like that with the centre forward. Has he got potential to turn it round? I think so. But I look at him at times and he just looks sluggish and slow. I don't think he is. But when you're struggling like that form-wise, my word, you look at it on the pitch.
Jason, doesn't seem to be the same issues if you're Manchester City, because the goals now, whereas before we were talking about an over-reliance on Erling Haaland, they are finding 3 other players who are really contributing in Tierney Reinders. As the Observer says, Reinders arrives late to deliver Christmas gifts to Jubilant City, and of course Phil Foden, but most of all the guy who's coming through now, Ryan Cherki, who seems to be a bargain buy for them now. They haven't looked entirely convincing either, but unnoticed almost is 8 wins in all competitions in a row. Of all the teams that Arsenal didn't want to be looking over the shoulder at, it's them, isn't it?
I think it is. The only thing I'd say about City, is I think defensively they're still quite vulnerable. I think they do give up goals, as we saw yesterday. There is always that vulnerability. I saw a lot of that in the Club World Cup. They do give up chances. That is, if you compare their defence to Arsenal's first choice defence, there is no comparison. Arsenal are far better defensively in terms of their organisation, in terms of their resilience. I think going forward, though, Manchester City suddenly are looking, as you say, much more of a unit. It's not just about Haaland. You've also got Doku and potentially got Semenyo as well. They're going to be scoring goals from everywhere. So I think that's going to be their strength in the second half of the season. We'll be going forward, blitzing teams, outscoring teams. They've already scored quite a few more goals than Arsenal already. The goal difference is better. So I think that will be their real strength. And that could be quite exciting for us, because I don't think they've got the same level of control in games we've seen before, where they almost it's like relentlessness to them of obviously just beating teams, getting in front, and there's no chance of anyone coming back at them. I think there is a vulnerability there which makes it, as I say, more exciting. We see both those teams have got vulnerabilities, really. There's nobody you're looking at and thinking they're just going to win it. They can't. 2 or 3 years ago, you're thinking like Liverpool or Man City, they're just going to pull away. These two will pull away with Villa, I think, but there are vulnerabilities there that make them both catchable, I think.
I think City just look absolutely wonderful at the moment to play. It was a hard game for them at Forest yesterday.
But they do give up chances.
They do, absolutely, but they gave up the best chance of the first half, didn't they, with the cross, which Gibbs White was slightly put off from, and basically might have scored and given them the lead, and then obviously they're pegged back, but they come good and they rise again. You say almost unnoticed. Not from my perspective. I just think they've looked ominously good. And basically, they're consistent again. Yes, they've got some defensive frailty, particularly on corners. Donnarumma may be considered by some as the best keeper in the world, but he doesn't particularly like high physical balls into the box, basically. And that, I think, is their Achilles heel. But my word, as an attacking force, they are an absolute joy to watch. And they are purring. Well, Arsenal did that. Arsenal were like that in October, November, and they've hit their dip, and I just feel as if at the moment teams will go through those highs and lows. City are definitely going with Cherki. I have to say, what a play he looks. Basically he's loving his football, and City look great.
Mark, just finally on this, John Percy was at the City ground. He says the Guardiola juggernaut is continuing to gather momentum. 8th victory from 9 Premier League matches, and winning without performing brilliantly is a recurring theme for potential champions. The narrative has always been City are dangerous because they've been there, they've got the know-how. Is that a thing? Is that experience that important, or do we often overestimate what that can do?
No, it's definitely a thing, because of all the things that we talk about Arsenal, we're not talking about Man City, because we know that they've overcome those hurdles. The nerve, they've done it. The manager, he's done it. The players, they've done it. Even the fans at home, they know how games go. They know how kind of title races are played out. So everything that Arsenal is still having to answer the questions about, City have done that. So that's why it matters. And the City players also know that there will be games where you have to hold your nerve, you have to win it late. And again, the Arsenal players are still having that learning process. So yeah, experience does matter. We've seen it over the years with United, with Chelsea.
It's the manager, isn't it?
The manager as well.
Ferguson won titles by force of personality.
There must be 3 or 4 titles that Fergie won in the latter years that United weren't the best team in the league, but they've just got results. And City might be the same this season. They might not be the best team or squad in the league, but because they know how to get results and they know how to hold their nerve, then that might count. So experience matters massively in the title race.
Very quickly, in 1 or 2 words, who wins the league?
Arsenal.
Manchester City.
City.
Oh, I thought you were going to say 2, but that's still good. Brilliant. So, 2-1 for City. Let's see if our panel...
Leandro Trossard proved to be the perfect antidote to Arsenal's attacking frustrations, following Mikel Arteta's candid remarks about Victor Gyökeres. Gyökeres may have struggled to truly impress since his summer arrival at Arsenal, but over the weekend, there was finally a glimpse of what he is capable of. More importantly, Trossard showed exactly why he could be the key to unlocking the Swedish striker's full potential during Arsenal's hard-fought 2-1 victory over Wolves at the Emirates Stadium. The 31-year-old winger injected fresh energy into Mikel Arteta's side on Saturday night and helped breathe new life into the Gunners' attack. Shortly after replacing Gabriel Martinelli in the second half, Arsenal found the breakthrough. While Trossard did not directly contribute to either the opening goal or the dramatic stoppage time winner, his influence on the game was undeniable. Trossard took control of proceedings, dictating the tempo and pulling the strings down the left flank. Time and again, he dismantled Wolves' compact defensive setup, releasing Miles Lewis-Skelly into space, picking out Declan Rice on the edge of the box, and crucially, feeding Gyökeres with intelligent, well-timed passes. Operating as a creative hub, the Belgian showcased his playmaking qualities, delivering sharp, purposeful distribution. His introduction completely shifted the momentum of the match, and for the first time in weeks, Arsenal's $64 million striker briefly looked like a genuine threat. Before Trossard's arrival, Gyökeres endured a frustrating and ineffective outing in attack. In fact, the Belgian was the only player to carve out a clear-cut opportunity for the 27-year-old forward, slipping a simple yet incisive ball in behind the Wolves' backline. Gyökeres controlled the pass, beat his defender, and aimed for the far post. Wolves goalkeeper Sam Johnstone was beaten, but the Swedish striker saw his effort agonizingly drift just wide. If Arteta truly wants to get the best out of Gyökeres, then granting Trossard a more prominent role in the starting 11th could be the solution. Speaking to TNT Sports after the win, the Arsenal manager openly addressed the challenges facing his marquee signing. "It's a collaboration between the two," Arteta explained. "He was in some really good positions, but the ball didn't arrive quickly enough, accurately enough, or with the precision a number 9 needs to score." But his commitment and intention were there, and we have to keep pushing. Arteta was equally vocal in defending Gyökeres prior to the match, urging patience with the striker's adaptation to English football. "There was huge expectation because we were signing a proven goal scorer, probably with the best statistics in Europe," Arteta said. "But he's coming into a different league, the most demanding league in the world. What happens if he doesn't score in 5 or 6 games? That was the only question I asked him. How are you going to react if you don't score in 5 or 6 matches? Can you handle that? And what about the next 100 games? That's what people need to see. The sample size is still very small, so leave him alone. Let him do what he does best. Support him, and I'm convinced things will come good." That message from Arteta resonated beyond the Emirates. In the days following the Wolves' victory, the debate around Gyökeres intensified among pundits, supporters, and former players. While some questioned whether Arsenal's record signing is truly suited to the Premier League's pace and physicality, others pointed to the structural issues around him rather than the striker himself. Much of the post-match analysis focused on Arsenal's chance creation and balance in the final third. The Wolves game highlighted a recurring theme this season. Gyökeres often makes the right movements, but the service into dangerous areas has been inconsistent. When Trossard entered the match, that problem briefly disappeared. Arsenal suddenly looked more fluid, more unpredictable and far better equipped to supply a traditional number 9. Former players speaking on television and radio were quick to note the contrast. With Trossard drifting inside and linking play, Arsenal's attacking shape became more compact, allowing Gyökeres to stay higher up the pitch and occupy central defenders. That, in turn, created space for midfield runners like Rice and Ødegaard to arrive late in the box. It was a glimpse of an attacking formula that Arsenal have rarely sustained this season. The reaction from supporters has been equally divided. While frustration with Gyökeres' goal return remains, there is growing appreciation for his work rate, physical presence, and willingness to press from the front. Many fans now see Trossard as the missing connector, the player who can translate Gyökeres' movement into genuine scoring opportunities. Internally, Arteta faces an important decision. Persisting with a front line that isolates Gyökeres risks damaging the striker's confidence, especially with tougher fixtures on the horizon. At the same time, promoting Trossard to a regular starting role could mean reshuffling wide positions and reducing Martinelli's minutes, a bold call that would not come without consequences. Yet football at the highest level often comes down to chemistry rather than reputation. The Wolves match suggested that Arsenal's most expensive signing may not need drastic changes to his own game, but rather the right supporting cast around him. If Arteta embraces that idea, Gyökeres' slow start could soon be remembered as nothing more than a difficult adjustment period. For now, the pressure remains. Goals will ultimately define Gyökeres' Arsenal career, and patience in North London is never unlimited. But with Trossard offering clarity, creativity, and calm in possession, Arsenal may finally have found the key to unlocking their striker and turning promise into consistent production.